We know that earthquakes are a definite concern after our studying in this class, and fracking does indeed cause earthquakes in two different places. One, you get some tiny ones where you drill, and two, some bigger ones when you inject flow-backed wastewater. And we'll look at these two things in the next couple of slides, and also this important sort of solution to the problem of recycling fluids.
Earlier, this process creates fractures in the oil and gas reservoir rock.
So this is this video clip about how fracking works, and as water comes down the pipe, they push it with such pressure that it breaks the rocks right here, and at these fractures you can have earthquakes, and they're typically smaller than about a magnitude 1. It's very rare that we've seen documented cases of larger earthquakes than magnitude 1 from fracking. Now let's look at the other type of earthquakes, which are going to be much larger, from injection wells, and it's going to be a couple sequence of slides that we have to build up to understand.
The isolation plugs are drilled out and production begins. Initially water and then natural gas or oil flows into the horizontal casing and up the wellbore. In the course of initial production of the well, approximately 15 to 50% of the fracturing fluid is recovered. This fluid is either recycled to be used on other fracturing operations or safely disposed of according to government regulations.
So as it comes out, they skipped the one step, of course, that the fluids, when they are drawn out, they're usually put in a temporary pond or a tank, a sealed tank, where they're stored. But then what happens is, as the video said, you can either reuse things or dispose of them legally. And now you might be thinking, well, of course you could also dump them illegally, but basically we know that this does not happen on any large scale, because if people were dumping these fracking fluids, we'd know about it. They're really quite nasty at the surface, and there's not large-scale illegal dumping of any fracking fluids. So it's all dumped, it's all disposed of legally in legal wells. So what do you do? How do you get rid of all this water that's really nasty? You can't just put it anywhere. So what the solution is that people pump that water back into the ground in places where it will be stored, just like gas and oil have been for millions of years. In fact, usually what they do is they use old empty oil wells where they've sucked out all of the oil already, and now you have all that space that you can put in nasty chemically laden water, and it will stay there for as long as the oil originally did, for, like I said, millions of years. So just a quick glance at why you get very small earthquakes and few earthquakes in fracking itself, and much larger earthquakes in these wastewater injection wells has to do with a couple of different factors. First, the easy one to understand. You inject maybe 5 million gallons into a fracking job here. And that does it's very quick that you do that in, but some of these injection wastewater wells can be taking 90 million gallons a year, a whole lot more water. They handle a large volume of water. But the other important factor is that fracking that they do is they specifically seal off small sections of the borehole so that they are able to just have a very, very high stress buildup right in one small area. Whereas when you're doing an injection well and you want to do wastewater, you want to push that water out as far as possible over a large enough area so that you can basically make room for more water to pump in. And when you do that, you are affecting a much larger area. So if there are any faults nearby, they're going to be affected more by this example here on the right with the injection well than a fault in an equal position away from a fracking well, because they're simply not as close to where the stress concentration is. So injection wells, or wastewater injection wells, can cause big earthquakes. In fact, they have. This is a picture from Oklahoma, not normally a place where we think of having magnitude 5.6 earthquakes. Now that's a larger earthquake than possibly any of you have felt in your life living in Southern California. This was triggered by injection. How do we minimize that problem? Well, we said that one of the problems with the injection wells is you dump so much water down one well or one place. So what do you do about that? you try and reduce the amount that you pump down. And the best way to do that is to reduce your waste. And companies have found that they can now recycle about 90% of the flowback water. This is sort of a new finding in the last couple of years, way after Gasland was produced. You can see some articles here from 2013 showing that basically people have just started to discover it really does work to reuse the fluids. It doesn't degrade the quality of the production. They're still able to get just as much oil out. So this is not necessarily the only solution. There still have to be intelligent ways to manage those wastewater injection wells. But by dramatically limiting the amount of wastewater produced, we're going to dramatically limit the effects of earthquakes.